I think there are some conspiracies that are real. I mean, there's some that you could, oh, we don't know if that's real, but there's real conspiracies. And I just read a book called News Incorporated. It essentially said there's 155 corporate board leaders running the vast majority of our media institutions. There used to be many media institutions. Now there's 5 mega conglomerates, and there's 155 men running the boards of these media institutions.
So it's essentially a huge monopoly that shapes the news for its own profit.
There's one point, though. Of these 155 board of directors, super wealthy elites, they have interlocking directorships with other corporate powers. And one great example is General Electric. They run NBC, they own NBC, but they also make jet engines for our war machines.
Industrial complex.
So there's a clear conflict of interest there, which goes against every basic journalistic principle of not having a conflict of interest.
But once you have said that there is the monopoly that you describe, we still have to explain why it is that the morning news and the Northwest Arkansas Times and all of our newspapers apparently here will not mention it. There's all the clips for bailout. Here are all the clips for bankruptcy, foreclosures, bank failures, all the jobless
Nothing about the military.
clips. Business as usual clips. Regulation and deregulation.
Nothing about the military.
Unregulated greed. And on and on. In all of the subjects we've been talking about, there is no mention that the United States military and its empire are contributing factors.
Right.
One other thing. Global warming derives from military, particularly those tanks and particularly those airplanes that we have.
Giant warships, too.
And the giant warships. These are enormous producers of CO2.
Yeah.
The military is our biggest CO2 producer as an institution, and it's never mentioned.
Never mentioned. No, nobody talks about that.
No, it's not a part of the discussion until tonight.
Even in a facility, I worked in Kansas City for the Atomic Energy Commission. No one ever mentions the pollution that the military or military subcontractors make. And we were dumping all kinds of really nasty stuff into the rivers around there as part of what turned me into an anti-nuclear, anti-war activist. But the simple fact is, nowhere in all of this are you going to find anybody checking into the dumping habits of the military industrial complex.
Jacob jumping in. You just wanted to say something.
I just want to point out, that we're living in a very novel time during the American Republic, where after every war, when we would fight a war, we'd actually dismantle our military. We didn't want to keep it around.
No standing army.
No one wanted to have a standing army around. We'd keep around the National Guard up until World War II. We kept an actual standing military industrial complex. Eisenhower, who was the supreme Allied commander of Allied forces during World War II, said, as president, I fear when there will be a president who does not know as much about the military as I do, which makes me think that the current presidents are not in charge of the military. And you want to talk about a conspiracy theory, you don't have to look much further than Oliver Stone's JFK. And not a lot of people like to talk about that, but it's a very, it's a very interesting and very rich story about an American president who did stand up against the military industrial complex.
Let me ask my question one more time. Why is it that the editors of the morning news and the Northwest Arkansas Times, who are intelligent and decent people, why is it that they never...
Are they not
Arkansas
owned?
Democrat
Are they not owned by the military industrial complex?
They're owned by corporations, that's true. But they're also independently trained journalists. There's a counter-tradition within every newspaper.
Aren't a lot of their articles, though, copied from larger, AP sources?
Associated Press, yes, a great deal.
May I add one point?
But still, that has a journalistic tradition.
He's talking about the 5 mega corporations that have come together. The same 5 corporations own all TV stations, all radio stations, all book publishing houses, all magazine publishing houses.
About 5 own all the communications,
Hollywood, too.
Okay, but to notice how they shape the news and how they control the news, it's like getting up the fervor to end the war would not be good business.
Right.
Look at the way it was when you came home in the Vietnam War and Walter Cronkite had blood and gore all over the television screen, and there were guys getting shot in the side of the head and monks burning themselves, and people got out in the streets, they marched, they ended the war. Now, all you see is soldiers patting little kids on the head, riding around in these fancy machines with stuff on their head and smiling and all that sort of thing.
Part of the, oh, sorry.
But all I'm saying is, by keeping it nice and sanitary,
Right.
the wars can go on, the
Right.
profits can go on.
I think part of that has to do with like this supposed concept of journalistic objectivity in a sense. I mean, and it ends up becoming sort of corporate. I think every journalistic institution, every person has somewhat of a subjective point of view. And by saying, oh, we're going to be objective and fair and balanced, a lot of times that translates into journalists just giving the corporate perspective and not, standing for the public interest, for instance. And I don't know, I think part of that has
That
to do-
journalistic tradition is the balance. That is, that you give both sides.
Right, but they
what
don't.
I'm talking about
Right.
here is a massive absence of one side.
Right.
Of a major
Does
information.
does that
we're not
ethic even
perceiving.
exist anymore?
Yes, it does. It's trained in the journalism schools and sincerely trained, and it has all the liabilities
But maybe it's not rewarded.
that Abel just said. That is, that you are giving equal time to somebody who already has $1 billion, and
It seems like the people that really want to stand for the public interest in journalism don't get rewarded as much, though. I mean, the people that sell products better rise to the top, the Glenn Becks, the O'Reillys. I mean, these people are in Rush Limbaugh. I mean, they're able to sell products better, and for some reason. I don't quite understand why, but...
Well, actually, that's not true. In most markets where, for instance, Rush Limbaugh has gone up against, say, Mike Malloy, Mike Malloy has stomped him into the ground ratings-wise. Okay, gotten advertisers, that sort of thing. What always happens in a market where Rush Limbaugh or Sean Hannity or somebody is a religious group or somebody will buy the station, get rid of the liberal voice, and you see the lights going out all across the country.
Yeah.
Over the last year, I've seen at least 10 lights go out that way.
Right.